Hey, hello everybody, and welcome to the Sean Lowery Show. This is episode 46, getting close to the 50th episode. But I'm real excited today. I have on an awesome guest. Her name is Daria Tsvenger, and she's a mindset expert who went to Stanford and learned neuropsychology, and she helps some of the top startups and entrepreneurs manage stress, increase their productivity, basically help them with their mindset, which is something I think is so cool and interesting. And she's been featured in Forbes magazine. She's been on Good Morning LA talking about this. And she has her own program called the Dream Sprint, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But this is one of my favorite topics, how you can use your mind to become smarter, because I certainly need that. So, Daria, welcome to the podcast. How you doing?
Thank you, Sean, for having me. I'm really excited for our chat.
Yeah, for sure. So I wanted to have you on because these are some of my favorite conversations about like how the brain works and just I love that word neuropsychology. It sounds so fancy, but it's just basically how the brain works, right?
Yes.
So I want to talk, let's jump right in and talk about the power of the brain. So I've done research on it before, but like, what do you think is one of the most amazing things about the brain that maybe not everybody knows?
Course. First of all, your brain, it's the size of when you clench your right fist and put your left hand on top, this is the size of your brain.
That's tiny.
That's tiny. Yeah. So this is the first surprising thing, that your brain is tiny, but at the same time, it's a very complex organ. And let me put you let me paint some picture.
Okay.
So we have 86 billions of neurons in our brain. And neurons, those are special nerve cells which transmit electricity and special chemicals between one another. This is how they communicate. So, and these little neurons, they're like, postmen who always exchanging their mail. And this mail, it's basically the record of our emotions and the way we feel. And this is crazy.
That is crazy. How many did you say?
86 billion.
Okay.
86 billion. And every single neuron has 10,000 connections to its neighbors. So we are totally here in 86 trillion connections in our brain. Wow. And this is more than stars in the Milky Way galaxy.
That is insane.
So this is how complex our brain is. And
that's why everyone's different. That's why every single person is like different, right? Because there's no way that everyone could have the same combination of neurons. There's too many of them.
Yeah, there's too many of them. And although we have pretty much similar structures, yes, our brain is similarly structured. That's why it functions the same way. So I love to present it as hardware and software. So our hardware is similar. Okay. Yes, that's why it's easy for us to do like brain surgeries and stuff, because hardware is similar. But the software, yes, what chemicals these postmen are exchanging, what emotions do we feel, what experiences we recorded so far in our life, this is what makes us different, because the neurochemical imprint and electrical imprint in your brain will vary. You have a very unique imprint. There is no similar. There are no two people who think similarly, because they experience different things in their life, and this is what their brain recorded.
That's so cool. So like, one thing that I think is so interesting that I've learned is there's basically it's kind of the front and back, right? Like, tell me if this is correct from my knowledge. The front is there like when you're awake, and it's more of like controlling like day-to-day stuff. And then your back, like your subconscious mind, is kind of like what you believe, right? Is that kind of accurate?
It's approximately accurate.
Okay.
Yeah, approximately accurate. So our brain, yes, it consists from three parts. Yeah, we have the brain stem, and it's kind of like the core and the most ancient part of the brain. And this part is responsible for our automatic reactions. For example, when you are in the middle of the road and you see that car is about to hit you, you will probably run or freeze or do something uncontrollably. Yeah. So these uncontrollable reflexes, for example, when you touch something really hot, you won't think about like, oh, let me put my hand to another place. You will do it immediately. So those are the reflexes. Yeah. Then kind of like the second grade of your brain, the second layer, and it's literally, it looks like layers. The second layer, it's your reptilian brain.
Okay.
And the reptilian brain, this is where your stress response lies. This is where your another set of automatic reactions lies, more like emotional automatic reactions. Yeah. So your survival. And the most developed part of the brain, and this is what this is what differs us from other mammals. It's our neocortex. It's this the surface layer of the brain, and we have a pretty thick neocortex, and that's why we have very elaborate emotional world. We have all these different neurochemicals which basically differ us from animals. Yeah. And of course, consciousness, this is what differs us from animals. So far, science doesn't know where it lies or how it's created. So there are no answers to that. But probably because we have this really well-developed prefrontal cortex, probably this is the reason that we are thinking about thinking. Yeah, this is what consciousness means. This is when we can think about thinking. That's when we are metacognitive, the fancy word. Yeah, thinking about thinking.
Yes, I'm very happy to be a human. I'll say that. But so visualizations. You said something that you're interested in, and tell me if this is correct. It's basically like if if you visualize something or if you see something, it's almost like your brain doesn't know the difference. So that's why, like, if you envision yourself being successful, or if you like envision the life that you want, you can like kind of start to convince your brain that it's true, and then you'll start to act differently. Isn't that like kind of like the visualization that you said you were interested in?
Yeah. So I have a pretty unique take on visualization because it's like too much visualization content out there. Yeah, like visualize your life, visualize how successful you are, affirmations and all of that. Which I think is useful to an extent when we understand what actually happens with us when we do this. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, of course, we all hear this concept that yes, whatever you visualize, your brain doesn't distinguish it from reality. And as every, very popular concept, it's partially true.
Okay.
But partially, it's not true.
Okay. Yeah. So, what part's not true? Because I've only heard that it is true. So I like it.
The challenge is that I have many people who come to me and ask me, Daria, I'm visualizing my best life. I do it diligently every single day. I feel good while I'm doing this, but still for years, I'm not shifting. Nothing good happens. I'm just visualizing, but nothing good happens. So why it happens this way? And for majority of people, they start to think that there is something wrong with them. They feel like they're billionaires. They embody this feeling. They record themselves talking about how they become billionaires. They listen to these things. So all these nice techniques that are presented in lifestyle media, they are partially true because when we are visualizing, our brain literally, it doesn't distinguish if it's reality or not. But what happens in the brain? When you visualize like you are achieving your goal and you do it diligently, you have dopamine release. And dopamine, it's a neurotransmitter of achievement. Mm-hmm. That's why you feel good in a moment. Mm-hmm. That's why when you feel good when you visualize, but this is the trap. Okay. Because when you do this too much and too often, you lost the dopamine. You don't have an infinite amount of dopamine, so you lost it. And then your brain thinks that you already have it, so there is no need for you to do actions. That's why you procrastinate and you keep yourself at the same spot because you just ran out of dopamine. And how on earth do you think your brain will help you to actually make steps towards your big dreams?
So you wasted it all on the visualization.
Yes.
That's fascinating. That's fascinating. And you see that happen to a lot of people. And but the people who visualize and it does work for them, did they do something different where they're not wasting it?
Of course, they understand the importance of action,
Okay.
and they are visualizing not the end result, but the process.
Ah, okay, that makes
Yes.
sense. Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
So when you
That makes perfect
visualize
sense.
the process, you actually help yourself to anticipate different challenges that may be coming. Yeah, you help your brain to be used to become used to that. Not everything will run smoothly. That hard work is required and there are challenges along the way, and when you mentally prep yourself for this, and when you encounter these challenges while you are doing actions, you are more likely to overcome them rather than just turn back and go in different direction.
That makes perfect sense. Yeah, that's what I've always done is just like learn the information that you start a business, you're going to have struggles and failures. And then when they hit, you're like, I knew this was going to happen. I was ready for it. And then you visualize that part. And that is better than just like imagining yourself in like this king's chair. So the process over the result when it comes to visualization, that's like kind of the secret, you think?
Yeah,
That's so
definitely.
cool. That's so cool. So another thing I think that's interesting that I know, like, I think you mentioned it as part of your story is like depression, right? And that's something that I know like a lot of people go through. Like I've never personally had any like problems with that. I'm a very like positive person, but I know that like some people they think it's like kind of like a broken arm and like you can just get medicine and fix it. And I'm no expert, but I've always thought like it seems that people who are depressed they just they all do happen to be in bad situations, whether it's their fault or not. But you can't just fix like a broken arm and just take a medicine, or you have to do something like I think with your life to make yourself happier. What's your opinion on how like depression is part of the brain and how all that works, and ultimately how people can overcome that?
Yeah, this is a big topic. And disclaimer: I'm not a medical professional to
Okay.
recommend what you should do if you are depressed. So if
But
you
you are a
clinically
brain, but
depressed,
like, if you are a brain expert, is that different?
yeah,
Like,
of course, of course.
okay,
I don't have, I'm not licensed psychotherapist to recommend
okay,
people what they should do if they have some clinical. So if they want to, I can only share my experience and what is my opinion
okay,
on this topic,
okay,
but it's not
got
not a
it.
medical recommendation. Yeah.
Understood.
Um, legally we should be fine.
Yeah, don't worry about
Yeah.
it.
Um, so people can experience depressive states, and sometimes there are like two major types of depression: melancholic depression and agitated depression. So melancholic depression is what everybody thinks depression is when person has no energy, they're very
Right.
sluggish, they don't want to do anything. This is the melancholic one. But then there is an agitated one, when people are doing a lot of things, when they're like running like on steroids, but they are depressed. And this is what happens with many millennials nowadays, that they are depressed but they are not realizing that, because they're experiencing an agitated depression and not a melancholic one.
Okay. So they're not like in bed all day crying. They're still out and about doing things
Yeah,
actively. But when it comes down to it at the end of the day, they're just like
yeah,
unhappy.
yeah. They are they feel like a big emotional roller coaster, and that's why they can't they
Yeah.
basically can't enjoy life, and they can't feel
And what do you
fulfillment.
think is the best advice to give someone like that? Like, do you like envision your perfect life and start to like work towards it? Or like what steps would you kind of advise in your opinion for people that because I think I was reading your story and it said that at one point you were really down on yourself and then you kind of overcame it, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's just the matter. It's just, so the first step of course is the recognition. Yeah, this is the awareness
Recognition.
stage, when you recognize that, yes, I experience these challenges, yes, I experience depressive states, and yes, I don't want to be this way. Yeah, yes, I so this decision is very crucial. Once you are at the stage of recognition, and you're
Hmm.
not just associating yourself with this sad person which has no interest in
Right.
life. Yeah,
Right.
when you recognize that it's basically something that you want to change, this is half job done. But from there you start to see what are the most accessible actions that you can make right now. So I won't recommend people in depressive states visualize their perfect life, because it sounds like a scam.
Right.
They,
Okay.
their brain won't believe it.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
So
they have to acknowledge it, you're saying.
they have to acknowledge it, and then they have to find what they can do right now, which is easy enough. Basically, my motto is do the easiest thing that you see. Yeah. So
Okay,
just
makes
do
sense.
something, because do the smallest and the easiest thing that you see. Because sometimes people are just frozen, like, oh, should I choose that? Should I choose this? I have so many things, but I can't prioritize. Like, do the easiest thing.
Yeah, just pick one, right? And pick the
Yeah,
easiest one. I agree
pick
with
the
that.
easiest one, the most
Yeah,
affordable one for you.
right.
And because the action, this is what brings you to the next level. Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you are on the next level, you are able to see a more clear picture. Yeah. Because the higher floor it is, the more observatory power you have. Yeah. So when you are going step by step to another level, you will be able to see what's next. But from the down level, you can't see what your step number 10. That's why you have to take the easiest
Right.
step.
You can't go from 0 to 10. You have to take step 1 and step 2. And so, yeah, just get started. And I'm actually interested in the acceptance stage because do you think a lot of people struggle with just accepting it in the first place?
Yes, pure acceptance is really hard because people sometimes confuse self-blame with acceptance. Yeah, when you blame yourself for feeling this way, it's not acceptance, it's you blaming yourself, you make things worse. But your acceptance is when you remove your emotions and you just state, yes, things are like they are, and I accept and forgive myself for feeling this way.
Yeah, that makes sense. And yeah, I think that's hard. And one thing that I think that has worked well for me is I know sometimes I'll be talking to my friends or people that I know, and they'll have something that they just don't like to talk about. And they just basically, I feel like they can't get to that part of their brain. And every time that they try to go there, I feel like it's like cobwebs. They can't get back there. So like I've noticed that before. And I've gotten really good at like being really honest with myself and almost like if I have a flaw or a problem, even like making fun of myself. That's kind of the advice I've given people before. Any way that you can to like open up your brain where you're not like hiding, like, I don't want to talk about this one thing back here. I want to ignore it. So I always try to like be really honest with myself. And like, now I feel like that helps me in like business because if I have a decision to make, like my brain already has like these like paths right to the truth, and I don't ever like have any cobwebs back there. Does that make sense in like a neuropsychological sense? Like, do some people just avoid a certain topic, and then all of a sudden their brain just like cobwebs? That's the way I've seen it before. Does that kind of make sense to you?
Yeah, of course, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I see when people are just not able to talk about things or to acknowledge them. But the worst thing that can happen is that if you acknowledge it for them, and they're like,
I
oh
think I'm
my
guilty
God,
of that. I'm guilty of
my
that
secret
sometimes.
is out. My secret is out. I suspected this about myself, but right now another person sees that too. And this is sometimes I see that there is this desire, and I also have it in myself, especially with people who close to me.
Yes.
I see this, and it's very triggering.
Yeah.
I can say things, and these things would be like no judgment, just a fact. But
Yeah.
this fact, it's so deep inside in a person in front of me that it will trigger the hell out of them. But I'm like, you see, it hit the nerve. If there is nothing, there will be no reaction.
I am very, very guilty of that because I see them in people because I can, especially people close to me that I know.
Yeah.
And I acknowledge them. And I am very guilty of just because I think I'm so used to being honest with myself that I'll just like point it out or call it out. And you can definitely tell when it's triggering. Do you think that is helpful or harmful to the person? You said you think it is harmful for someone else to call them out on it.
I don't have a straightforward answer. I also tend to do this.
And they don't like it. But I think that might be like honest truth. And hopefully, obviously, if it's someone that I'm close with, my intention would be to help them figure out this point that they need to acknowledge and then get themselves on the right steps. I got to admit that I have not had a lot of success though helping people with that. I feel like maybe I just piss them off.
Yes, of course, because when you are kind of like, you know, if somebody's in the shower and you kind of like come there and stare and they are not prepared, of course they will be pissed off. They can't even like throw something at you. So this is the same thing. This is where like, you see people naked. Yes, in a psychological way. Right. And then you point them and say, oh, you kind of like, you don't look so good. Like, you should definitely exercise. You know what I mean? This
Yeah.
is not good.
But
So
if you love this person and you want to help
yeah,
them, like
there
what?
is a way.
Okay. What
There
is
is
it?
a way.
I need to learn this.
There is a way. It is a really good disclaimer. So if you make them ask for this or give their permission to ask for this is where they can't be super triggered. Because, for example, you can, before, if you spot something and you want to help this person to acknowledge it or to get through this, first of all, you tell them, I like, you're a really good person. I really love you, whatever relationship you have with this person.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed one thing, that maybe you won't be super happy when I say this to you, but can I have your permission to say this? And when you ask for their permission to say this, and they like, yes, of course, like, what's that? And then you say that in a very like soft, not like hit them, when they're in the shower naked.
Right. Let them
But
put a
kind of like
towel. Let them put a
acknowledge, like,
towel on.
knock on the door and like say,
Okay.
okay, may I come in? It
That's
will be
good.
better.
And just, I mean, even if they want to say no, you can't. They're probably going to say yes. And then they gave you permission, I guess. And then, yeah, and be soft and kind about it. I've done that before. I've been soft and kind. But that's nice. That's a good tip. Ask for permission.
Yes.
I like
yes.
that.
And then they can't be pissed off because they just acknowledge that they gave you permission.
That's really good. Even though you asked for permission, like, still,
yes. But if
really
you don't
good.
ask, you don't get it.
Exactly. That's really good. I like that. And I'm definitely going to apply that tactic next time I see someone that I got to call them out. I'll have it in my head, but I just got to be nicer about it. Ask for permission. That's really good. That's really good. So another thing that I've been interested about and debated about with some people about all these thoughts I have are like, I didn't go to school for this. I'm just so interested in the brain and my own, and I just kind of am just basing it on nothing. But I haven't been sick in like 17 years. And this is actually an interesting time to talk about this with all that's going on. But I'm not talking about a common cold. Like, I haven't been sick in like 17 years. And I think it's because I like told myself I'm not going to get sick. And I've been sick for 12 years. Haven't been sick for 13 years. And I mean, I exercise. I try to eat healthy. But I think the main reason I haven't had a cold is because of my brain telling myself that I'm not going to get sick. Do you think there's any credibility to that belief?
Oh, of course.
Yeah?
Of course, yes. I mean, there is legit research out there which shows how, like, it's basically placebo effect. If you are, basically, you're not getting what you want, you're getting what you expect.
Yeah.
So working with the expectations, it's the hardest thing ever. But if you have some expectation, it would definitely come true. Yes.
Yes.
Not what you want, but what you expect. And you can't fake it.
Yes. that is, yes, exactly.
So for example, when I lived in Asia for 6 months, and I live like in the most rural areas, like no sanitary norms, like people cooking, like, for example, you go to this lady on a bicycle who sells the rice from her bucket, and then she grabs rice with her hand, puts it in your plate, then she takes money with the same hand, puts it in her pocket, and you have two options. Either you like stick yourself with all vaccines possible and like put medicine all the day and like sanitize your hands like crazy all the time, or you just say like, fuck this.
Yeah.
I'm just living.
Yeah. Yes. And like, I think the people who would disagree with that would be like, well, your body takes in these germs and it's going to get sick. It doesn't matter what your brain does. It's a body thing. Like, how would you argue back to that? Here's the thing. The other thing is if I am in this, healthy debate with somebody, because it's interesting, and they don't agree with me, sometimes then they'll say like, well, what about cancer? And then I'm like, I don't know what to say about that. Do you think they're different? Do you think a common cold and general like immune system and expectations versus like cancer, something that people get unexpectedly, is that something you think you can like think or like that? Because that's where I always like will lose that argument when someone brings up cancer or ALS, and I never know what to say then.
Yeah. There is no formal research about cancer, but there is some informal research which Dr. Joe Dispenza does. He's basically the guy who does research about spontaneous remissions. It's when people are getting cancer and they like spontaneously have no cancer in a matter of days. No explanations, and he studies these people, and there are quite a few examples around the world. So there is this thing like spontaneous remission, and in the majority of cases, people who are able to experience spontaneous remission, they are really ruthlessly acknowledge things that they never acknowledged before, yeah, and they are literally releasing this emotional burden, and basically the body starts to self-destruct, because cancer is a self-destruction. So what part of you doesn't want to live? Which conflict do you have that you're not solving? I see this, but it's not completely backed by science, but I see it this way, because if something is unexplainable, yes, we should try to see it in the ways that also unexplainable. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I've seen a lot of, for example, a good friend of mine, Kelly Gores. She's an amazing movie director here in Los Angeles. She directed this documentary. It's called Heal.
Okay.
And it's all about spontaneous remission. So if you ever in
spontaneous remission, that's,
yeah,
you get cancer and you then you don't have it.
Yeah.
And I know it's informal, but they have found the people who had the spontaneous remission.
Oh, thousands of them.
Yeah. And the results are like the reason that they got into remission was because of they had positive thinking, or because they acknowledged problems. Like they can relate something to it. I'm trying to follow exactly.
Less about positive thinking, which sometimes can be toxic. Because if you just try to apply some things which are not true on yourself, you know deep inside that it's not true, and then you will be in a pretty bad state if you use positive thinking when you are in the bad place. So it's all about the first step. It's like to work through your wounds, to acknowledge them, yes, to bravely understand things that you were so afraid to recognize even in front of yourself.
Which is what we were just talking about.
Yes. So it's definitely like every suppressed emotion, it gives a lot of toll on our bodies. Like it has a big toll. We can't suppress emotions and then expect that nothing bad will happen. Yeah.
And so if you suppress emotions, not only may you not be unhappy, this isn't scientific or proven, but it also might lead you towards getting cancer. And if you do, it could even like make it worse. Like that's crazy. That is, it's so important. It's so important that the way that you operate your mind.
It is. And if you are in some arguments about these things with people, just direct them to this movie Heal. It's on Netflix right now.
I'm going to watch it tonight.
It goes through healing journeys of three people with like terminal cancer, and how they were able to heal. And they're like a bunch of doctors who give their comments and stuff. So
wow,
it's interesting.
That's so fascinating and so cool. And it's the reason why I love the brain so much. Like it's the most important thing. That's so cool. So that's two things that you gave me there that are really helpful. So I love it. So yeah, we kind of said the depression and this sickness stuff. So that kind of applies to everyone. But I know that you said you worked with like entrepreneurs, right? So I have my own business. I'm definitely consider myself an entrepreneur. And why do you think like entrepreneurs are so into this like mindset stuff? Like I feel like the word mindset and entrepreneur like goes together a little bit. Do you think that's a coincidence, or why does what you do associate it with like entrepreneurs, do you think?
Yeah. Because when you have your own business, you are the representation of it. Whatever you are, this is how your business is. You can't be like afraid and full of fear and have a good business. Yeah. Right. Because you always must be at your peak performance, because you are responsible. You have a really big chunk of responsibility. Right. Yeah. While employees, they just have their certainty in form of a salary. And this is basically, they can have no responsibility at all, just fear of being fired. Yeah.
Right.
But of course, they are entrepreneurial employees. Of course, there are these people who are acting like entrepreneurs within organizations 100%. But these people, in the majority of cases, they are like incentive-based people. So they are incentivized with like bonuses and
Right.
this premiums and stuff like that. So if you are an entrepreneur, and if you basically you're an entrepreneur when you can attach your performance to like how much money you're making to your quality of life.
Yeah. And I mean, that makes perfect sense, because if you have a business and you're just ignoring a problem, well, then your business is going to fail. So you have to be able to acknowledge these problems in your brain or in your business. And that's why it's so important to just be open and be able to do that. And like, so when you help entrepreneurs, like, do they come to you and like kind of talk this out?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are different formats that I work with. I have this public program which is called the Dream Sprint.
Yeah, talk about that. Yeah.
So in the Dream Sprint, basically the Dream Sprint, it's not specifically for entrepreneurs. It's for people, for example, for creatives, for any even solopreneurs, yes,
Okay.
who are doing their work, who are building their personal brands in this world. And for this, you have to, first of all, figure out what exactly you want. Yeah. Like, what is the direction in the midst of like thousands of directions that you can take?
Right.
What is the direction that you want to pursue? And get the courage, yes, and the confidence to pursue this. Because once you figured out the direction, but if you are full of fears, if you run the limiting stories in your mind, you have no chance of actually following through on that. So in this public program, I help people specifically go through this.
That's so cool.
Yeah,
Yeah, so the dream sprint, that's your business, right? And people come to you. So I'm interested in you said they need the first thing you make them do is get a specific goal.
Yes.
How specific? How specific?
The first thing, yeah. So there are like literally an hour and a half lecture that I make about how to formulate your goals, because the very formulation of your goal is really important, because sometimes people are formulating things in a way that just our brain doesn't understand. Yeah. Like, for example, okay.
Yeah.
One example, many people, for example, the simplest thing, you want to lose weight or you want to be fit. Yeah. You can formulate it in a way, oh, I want to lose like 20 pounds till September 2020. Yeah. Okay. Whatever. This is completely wrong.
It sounds pretty specific.
It's specific, but it's so wrong, because because you are directing yourself towards the thing which you basically do not want at all, because you can gain 50 pounds and then lose 20 pounds and still your goal will be fulfilled. Okay. You can get very sick and you can lose weight because you get very sick.
Right.
And you still hit your goal.
True.
So there can be thousands of different options how you end up losing 20 pounds by September 2021.
You could lose an arm or something.
I mean, it's we're not being like so super great, but and I see many people, they are thinking that their goals are specific, but they are not reflecting what they want. And when they get it, they're like very surprised, but it's actually it reflects what they formulated. So for example, the best way to formulate your goal about getting fit or being in a certain shape, it's literally like, I want to weight like 150 pounds in a healthy body. Yes. Okay. So you're not anchoring yourself on what do you want to lose. You're anchoring yourself on the final result, and major thing, in a healthy body.
Yeah, that's an important part, you're saying.
That's an important part, because if you lose your healthy body along the way, like, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
So things like that. And we are going through many examples about how goals, like a
business. What if someone says, like, I want to have a $5 million business, $100 million business? Is that specific enough? Probably not.
No, it's not specific enough, because first of all, with money, it's like a whole different topic with the money mindset and stuff.
Okay.
When you want, Okay, sometimes people come to me, okay, like Daria, so I formulate, I want specifically this amount of money. But in order to, money doesn't come because you want money. Money comes when you have your needs, when you know where you want to spend them, when you know where you want to invest. They don't come just because you want to win a lottery. Yes?
Right,
They
exactly.
come for the needs. So
Right.
your level of expectation should rise first before you want some money. Yeah. So
right.
what do you expect in your life? Yes. What level do you want to be in your life? Yeah. What are your needs? So basically calculate them. And this is the level for which you are ready to receive.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes perfect sense. So yeah, so for the dream sprint, people come to you, and then you help them shape their specific goal, and then
Yes.
what do you do with them?
Yes, then we are working through the mental garbage,
Okay, I like that.
which prevents them from pursuing this goal. So basically, it's really easy to understand if the dream sprint is a good fit for you or not in one sentence. So if you have an idea in your mind, and if you're able to take steps immediately towards your idea without thinking, is it right or wrong? Should I go left, right, direct? Like, what is the way? If the time between the idea and the execution is really short, then you don't need the dream sprint. You're fine.
Okay.
But if you have an idea and then like, oh, let's talk, let's calculate, let's do like several Excel spreadsheets, let's think if these are good or not. So if your mind goes into this rambling point, indecisiveness, and then your actions are delayed, you are literally like dragging your to-do list from one day to another This is where it means that you have some mental clutter, and then you have to get help to remove this.
Okay. So yeah, everyone listening, thedreamsprint.com. That's
Yes.
You can get it right there. That's awesome. Go check it out. And yeah, I can see that being very helpful. And I think I heard you say something about you hold the people accountable, right?
Yes. So there is no other program like that, because it's not a program which you just buy content and basically you just sit and procrastinating on it.
Right. That's common.
You're literally, yes, this is how like the majority of courses are built. That's why I'm not using any course platform for that.
Okay.
I'm actually doing this all through WhatsApp. It's like a messenger.
Yeah.
So basically you receive content in a group in a form of audio messages like podcasts. So you would listen to it like you would listen to a podcast, and then you have 72 hours to complete tasks and then to submit it like you would submit your paperwork in the university.
Okay.
And if you submit it, you go forward. If not, you are deleted from the program.
I like that part. I was listening to something earlier, and they just get deleted, right? They get kicked out.
Yes, that's it. There is no way to restore.
No second chance?
You can start, like the program starts every month. You can start over, but there is like 2 attempts in total.
I think that is powerful. And I think that's my favorite part. That's so cool that you kick people out, because other people might just be like, oh, well, of course we'll keep coming in. We'll take your money or whatever. But I think that makes it really powerful. The threat of being able to get kicked out. So the dream sprint.
It's really powerful, because
That's
we
awesome.
are wired in school to be punished for not doing stuff. So if we don't have this punishment, if we don't have the most productive hour, it's an hour. It's an hour right before the deadline.
Right.
So that's why I see it's very effective, and that's why I get the results I get for people.
That's awesome. So yeah, everyone go check that out. And I actually had one other topic that I was interested in and wanted to ask you about. And you're from Russia, right?
Yes.
When did you come to America?
2016.
Okay, so you are. I'm always curious about Russia. Is the culture very different here than America? Because you don't hear a lot about Russia. I mean, I just know it will be on the news or the movies, but it's very. I feel like it's rare I get to talk to someone who's from Russia. And is it very different over there, culture wise, and maybe mindset wise, or? I'm always curious about the Russian culture. It's very different.
Oh, it's more like Asian culture rather than Western culture.
Okay.
It's closer to that. So when I was living in Asia, I found more similarities than with the US and Northern America.
And are they more maybe strict or serious, or how would you define it? The difference in culture.
So imagine that this country approximately 30 years ago didn't exist because it was Soviet Union.
Okay.
and it was socialism. So people who grew up in a socialistic society, they're still alive. Those are our
Yeah.
grandparents and
Yeah.
partially parents. And these people, they lived in a totally different world. Their world was that kind of like the motto of Soviet Union was get what you want, contribute what you can.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically, there was no, and I mean, there are good things in that because
Right.
honestly, I think mental health is much better in socialistic society because people don't have choice, and choice creates a lot of mental health problems. So
Interesting.
imagine going, and there is a lot of research about that. For example, there is a research that if you are presented with 12 different options of chocolate flavor, you won't pick any. Like 95%, they can't pick any flavor and they just turn away and they don't pick any. But if you're presented with 2, you pick.
Okay.
You pick,
Okay.
happy, and you don't think that there was something better that you missed out. So choice, it's a really high level of thinking in terms of if you are able to make choices fast and without damaging your psychological health,
Right.
you are at a very good level of personal development.
Right.
Because for the majority of people, choice is really, really hard.
Right.
And
It's stressful.
Choose nothing. Yeah.
Yeah. Like they just want to be told what to do.
Yeah.
But
and
usually,
for some people, it's good.
Yeah, for some people. But yeah, I mean, the socialist thing, like, doesn't really always work out, right? And like, it's not like that anymore in Russia. But like, so are those people like, they like how it used to be, or it's just the fact that it's totally different now is part of the culture?
It's just the fact that it's a transition.
So
this is neither a super socialistic society or neither the capitalistic. So it's kind of like a blend.
Okay.
And for example, in Russia, we have free education. So we don't have things like student loans at all. Free medical system. So nobody, can be pretty much like in debt for life if they have some like issue with their health. And then so there is some things that are good, and I think they give a lot of. We don't have no homeless at all. Like nobody. It's just not legal. So there are good things that I see that kind of like this partially socialistic thing does. There is kind of like the basic thing that you will be covered, like you can have kids and their whole education will be free completely from kindergarten to
I can see how that's like a nice. But then I guess it's harder for entrepreneurs, right? That in that type of society, people who really want to like build something like big, that makes it maybe a little harder.
Yeah, it's harder for entrepreneurs, definitely. It's just not a conventional path. So I think in America, being an entrepreneur, it's already a conventional path. It's kind of like, it's a conventional path. It's not like, oh my God, you're an entrepreneur. No, it's like so many people do this. But in Russia, it's kind of like, it's a very unconventional path. And it's not something that is super appreciated in society. So it's not something that you will be super recognized for. Yeah, working for government, yes, it's cool, it's prestigious, it's really awesome. So just different value systems.
Okay, that actually makes perfect sense in the difference between the two cultures. And like, I guess I was going to ask if a lot of people in Russia are like interested in coming to America, but I guess maybe only the people who are entrepreneurial. Like is that something that you like really wanted to do, come to America, or like what made you come here?
Yeah, I came here because of my husband's startup. So honestly, I didn't want.
You didn't want to?
I didn't want to because I mean I was pretty comfortable where I was. I lived in Moscow. I had pretty straightforward career path, unconventional one. So I was always kind of like an unconventional type of person. I always had my business since I was like pretty young, and I was like very entrepreneurial, and things were aligning really great. But then my husband, it made sense for his company to be in Silicon Valley. So that's why we moved to San Francisco first. And I was really glad that I think it took a lot of personal strength of mine to find my place in a pretty short period of time.
That's hard. It's hard to do that.
Yeah, I'm pretty proud of myself.
Did you have to learn the language? Like, did you learn English like when you moved, or did you?
I used to speak prior, so when I was in Russia, I already spoke English. But of course, American accent was not something that is like I easily picked up per se,
Okay.
because we learned British version.
Ah, that's interesting. That's interesting. But I mean, yeah, your accent is great. Like I feel like you've adapted pretty well, and you're doing pretty great. And you're doing pretty great in America, right?
Yes, I am.
Well, we're happy to have you. But no, that's actually very insightful because I'm always interested about Russia. It seems like a cool country. And okay, so it's just a little difference with how entrepreneurs are like looked at and the government. So that's very cool and very interesting. And you've taught me a lot of things today.
Yeah, you're very welcome, and it's a pleasure to chat with you. A very, very positive person. You know, I
Absolutely.
see that you are working on yourself, working on your mindset, and
It's
I
fun.
really see a clear path forward for you, which is
Absolutely,
amazing.
absolutely. So awesome. All right. Well, I really appreciate you coming on. This has been great, and thanks everyone for listening.
Thank you.
See
Thanks
ya.
for having me.
All
Bye.
right. Cool.